Victoria Hale had built her empire on control. Control over markets, over boardrooms, over headlines, over the whispers that followed her name through the glass towers of downtown Chicago. But on that cold October morning, as steam drifted from the marble floors of her lakefront mansion and the city skyline shimmered beyond her private balcony, control slipped from her fingers in the most unexpected way. She stepped out of the indoor pool, water cascading down her skin, certain she was completely alone in a house guarded by gates, cameras, and silence. And then she saw him. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the unexpected ways life changes us, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart. Victoria had grown used to emptiness. The mansion overlooking Lake Michigan was magnificent, designed by the best architects in the United States, filled with imported art and custom furniture, but it echoed with solitude. At 38, she was one of the youngest billionaires in America, the founder of a tech logistics company that had revolutionized freight systems across the country. Magazines called her brilliant. Analysts called her ruthless. Employees called her intimidating. But no one called her friend. Her mornings were ritualistic. Swim. Review financial updates. Prepare for another day of strategic dominance. She had fired her household staff the night before in a sudden burst of frustration after discovering an internal betrayal at her company. She trusted no one anymore. The house, she assumed, was empty. Marcus Bennett had not expected to witness the most powerful woman in Chicago standing on the edge of her pool, startled and vulnerable beneath the rising steam. He was a single father from Aurora, hired that morning by a subcontractor to inspect a faulty security panel at the mansion's rear entrance. He had arrived early, hoping to finish the job before picking up his 8-year-old daughter, Ava, from school. Life had not been gentle with Marcus. After losing his wife, Rachel, to cancer 3 years earlier, he worked double shifts as an electrician to keep their modest home and ensure Ava never felt the full weight of their loss. When Victoria turned and saw a tall stranger standing near the hallway archway, toolbox in hand and eyes wide with shock, time froze. The air between them felt electric, not because of embarrassment alone, but because her carefully constructed world had just cracked open. She had never been seen like that. Not by investors. Not by rivals. Not by anyone. Instead of anger, Marcus looked away instantly, his face flushing with respect rather than intrusion. He stepped back, apologetic, explaining in a steady, humble tone that he had been called to repair the security system. Victoria wrapped herself in a nearby towel, her heart pounding for reasons she could not explain. For the first time in years, someone had seen her without the armor of tailored suits and boardroom authority. What began as a humiliating accident turned into something neither expected. Victoria insisted he finish the job while she dressed. From the upstairs balcony, she watched him work. His movements were precise, patient. When he tested the wiring, he smiled slightly at his own careful craftsmanship. She noticed the worn leather of his boots, the frayed cuff of his jacket, the photograph of a little girl taped inside his toolbox lid. Curiosity overcame her usual detachment. She asked about the child. Marcus spoke about Ava with quiet pride, about ballet recitals and math homework struggles, about learning to braid hair by watching online tutorials after Rachel passed away. He did not mention hardship directly, but it lingered in his tired eyes and calloused hands. Something unfamiliar stirred in Victoria's chest. She had built companies from scratch, negotiated billion-dollar mergers, and navigated ruthless competition, but she had never learned how to build connection. Marcus spoke of his daughter as if she were the most valuable asset in the world. Victoria thought of her own childhood in Ohio, raised by a single mother who worked endless shifts at a diner. She remembered promising herself she would never be powerless again. Somewhere along the way, strength had become isolation. Days later, Victoria surprised herself by calling the subcontractor to request Marcus specifically for additional maintenance work. She justified it as efficiency. In truth, she wanted to understand why his presence unsettled her so deeply. Over the next few weeks, brief conversations turned into longer ones. She found herself asking about Ava's school science fair. He asked about her company's new expansion into Texas. They came from different worlds, but both understood sacrifice. The real turning point came when Ava's school announced a robotics competition that required a costly entry fee Marcus could not easily afford. Victoria overheard him on the phone outside her study, his voice strained as he calculated bills. That night, she reviewed her own balance sheets and felt an unexpected wave of shame. Billions sat in her accounts while a child's opportunity hung in the balance. Instead of writing a check anonymously, she made a different choice. She created a foundation in Rachel's name, honoring Marcus's late wife, dedicated to funding STEM programs for children of single parents across Illinois. The robotics competition became the foundation's first initiative. Marcus was overwhelmed, not because of the money, but because someone powerful had chosen compassion over indifference. Victoria began visiting the school events quietly, sitting in the back row as Ava demonstrated her robot. Watching the little girl's confidence, Victoria realized that success measured only in stock prices felt hollow compared to the spark in a child's eyes. Her board members questioned her shifting priorities. Investors whispered that she was becoming soft. But Victoria no longer cared. She restructured her company's policies to support working parents, introduced flexible hours, and invested in community education programs. The billionaire who once walked through glass corridors alone began walking through neighborhoods she had previously only seen from tinted car windows. Marcus never treated her as a trophy or a headline. He treated her as a person learning how to feel again. In his steady presence, she rediscovered vulnerability not as weakness, but as courage. If this story is touching your heart so far, please take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who needs to believe that people can change. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Before we reach the ending, I have a special request for you. Please comment the word hope below if you believe that even the strongest walls can come down when kindness walks in unexpectedly. Months after that unforgettable morning, Victoria stood once again on her balcony overlooking Lake Michigan. This time she was not alone in spirit. Down in the garden, Marcus and Ava laughed as they planted autumn flowers. The mansion no longer echoed. It breathed. She thought back to the moment she had stepped out of the pool, certain she was unseen, only to realize someone was there. She had felt exposed, embarrassed, stripped of control. Yet that vulnerability had opened the door to something richer than power. It had led her to rediscover compassion, to rebuild her company with purpose, and to find connection where she least expected it. Victoria Hale had conquered industries, but the greatest victory came when she allowed herself to be human. And sometimes, the most life-changing encounters begin in the moments we feel most unguarded.